In this video, we're going to go over styling your villain website using CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. CSS is the design of a website. It's how you get good-looking websites. CSS is definitely going to be one of the areas where you will need the link to the tool documentation. There are all kinds of styles, and I would not expect you to remember them all, so use the code.org tool documentation. So in this video, we're going to cover styling hyperlinks, styling navigation links, adding a border to an image, classes versus styles, changing the color of text, changing the background color, and floating an object to the left or right. All right, so this whole thing starts with body, then you have the curly brackets, and then you have some selectors, and then you have the ending curly bracket. That is the rule set. Each time you add one of these to the CSS document, it's a rule set. Within the rule set, this is your selector. This portion not only goes in your CSS style sheet, but also in the HTML document so that the HTML knows to pull this design from the CSS document. So now this is called the selector. The next part of this is the property, font family, color, width, height. Those are properties. Those tell the web browser how to style your selector. This part is called the value. So font family, the value is Arial sans serif. Color, #555, I believe that's a gray color. A declaration statement is the selector plus the property. A selector can have multiple declaration statements. This is a declaration statement. This is a declaration statement. We're going to start off with styling text, and what we'll cover is text decoration and the value, text align and its value, font size and its value, font family and its value, and then color and the value. If you haven't already, head on over to code.org and open up your villain website project. I am on the index page. The first thing that we have to do is we need to link our style sheet to all of our pages. So if you go to your index page and you look up here, it should say link, then REL, which means relative, and it says style sheet, and then href, that's again the file name and the location of your style sheet. So I am going to copy this line, and I am going to make sure that all of my other pages in the head section link. So again, you're in the head section. Because this is a new tag, I'm putting it on its own line. I'm going to go to the copyright page. I'm going to do the same thing. And then I'm going to go to my FAQ page. And again, I'm going to go into the head section and paste that. And then I'm going to go back to the index page. So what we have right now is all of our HTML web pages are now linked to this style sheet. This is where all the code for the CSS is going to live, in the style.css. We are going to learn how to style text, and the first thing that we are going to look at is font size. Okay, so go to your style.css. For the paragraph, after the first curly bracket, put your cursor after the first curly bracket, then hit enter. Just like with HTML tags, each one goes on its own line. The same goes for CSS. Each selector, each declaration statement goes on its own line. We are going to do the font size selector first, We are going to do the font size property first. So go ahead and start typing in font, F-O-N. And this window pops up and down here says font dash size. Now we do everything in pixels for the website. So I am going to put in 12 pixels, PX. And then to close this tag, I need to do a semicolon at the end. So colon indicates there's going to be a value. Semicolon says I'm all done with this statement, move on to the next one. Okay, so over here, you can see that all the font, all the text got really small. I think that's a little bit small. I'm going to change it to 14 pixels. And there, it's a little bit bigger. The next property we are going to learn is font family. I'm going to start typing in font, and I want the option for family. For me, it's the second one. I want you to play with these and see what each one does. So on mine, cursive doesn't really look cursive. So to get that pop-up menu back, you have to hit delete, and it just doesn't want to come back. So I'm deleting everything. I'm going to start typing again. There it is. I'm going to try fantasy, see what that looks like. Again, I don't think that looks very fantasy-like. I'm just going to delete that again, and this time knowing that I have to start from scratch, just delete the whole thing. Font family. I'm going to try the monospace. The inherit would be that it would inherit whatever the body, whatever font that you say the body's going to be. I'm just going to go through these and see what they all look like. I'm going to try the sans serif. I need to end it. And the last one. So the sans serif font it looked just like this one, but it shouldn't have. I'm just going to type that in again. There we go. That's what the sans serif is supposed to look like. I'm going to keep it on sans serif. The reason I'm going to keep it on sans serif is when you're online, sans serif fonts are easier to read. So sans serif means that the font doesn't have the little legs. The next property that we are going to learn is color. So I'm going to start typing in color. There it is. I'm going to click on it. So you can type in a name for a color, or you can use the hex code. Let's see. I'm going to make all my fonts dark magenta. And let's see what happens. Oh, okay. I think I'm going to go, because I'm using this nice blue colored picture, I think I will go with a blue. Good enough. I need to make sure that I put the semicolon in to close it. So notice that again, code.org is making our code display correctly, even when we don't have that end in. The next one that we are going to do is we're going to do text align, T-E-X, and it's the first one that pops up. You can do left or right. Websites are typically left aligned. There is some use for center aligned occasionally, but typically left aligned is where you want to go. But I want you to play with these. So that's right aligned. See what center. I would absolutely never use center align on websites. I'm going to put this to left, and then I'm going to close the declaration statement. So again, this whole thing is a declaration statement. And we have one more to learn, and that is text decoration. Typing in text, it's decoration, so it's the third one down. You can put a line through your text. You could do none. An overline is a line above, and an underline is a line below. I'm going to try overline. I want to see what that line through looks like. And then remember to close your tag, remember to close your declaration statement. So those are all the ones that you can use for text. All right, so what I want you to spend time doing is I want you to pause this video and then go through your website and style some of your paragraph maybe your body. I want you to style your text. So these are all the ones that you can use: font size, font family, color, text align, or text decoration. And I want you to apply some styles to your text. You should have some headings in there. You can change the color of those, all that lovely stuff. Once you're done with that, come back to the video. All right, now that all your text is styled, we are going to learn how to do some styling of our layout. So we are going to cover the width, the margin, the height, the border width, the border style, border color, border radius, background color, and float. We're also going to cover padding, which is not on this list. Okay, so I am just going to take some of these paragraph things off. I think I'll take the color, the text align, and the text decoration off of mine. So I am going to show you most of what we'll cover by styling this navigation bar. So the first thing I'm going to do, I don't actually want a link to Google, and I know I put that in there a couple of videos ago to show you how to do an external link, but I don't want that link, so I am going to actually delete that from my navigation. Only having your navigation what you're actually going to use. Okay, this is a new line of code, so I'm going to put it on its own line. All right, so to start styling this with CSS, the first thing I need to do is I need to put the selector in. And since we're working on a navigation bar, I am going to call this nav bar. So I'm going to, it's going to look just like code. So less than. Then I'm going to type in nav bar, and then I'm going to close it. And then I'm going to go to the very last one, all the way after that last A, and I'm going to close the nav bar. So now while we're here, I want to talk a little bit about organizing your code. So I've said that everything should be on its own line, but I'm not exactly doing that. So after the nav bar, I'm going to hit enter. Then between these A's, I'm going to hit enter again, so that each of these links is on their own line, but they won't actually show up on their own line. So after the closing A, I'm going to hit enter. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because it makes it easier to see your code and see where you're messing up. So this is very easy to see, but these paragraphs, it's a little bit harder. There's nothing I can do about that because that's how they're coming out. But right here, this is very easy to see where my code is. This is indented a little too much. I'm going to undent that. One of the things that you are going to have to do is make sure that your code is organized. And by organization, I mean each tag is on its own line, just like you're seeing here. Okay, so now that I've done the organization on this page, since we're here, and I've put the nav bar and wrapped it around what's going to be my navigation bar, we can now go into the CSS. Before we do that, I'm going to copy the word nav bar. Just the word, not the carets on the ends. And then I'm going to go to style.css. So below my last one, I'm going to paste what I copied do a space. The curly brackets are above your bracket, so hold down Shift and hit the curly bracket, hit Enter a couple times, and do the other curly bracket. So this is now a rule set. We've just created a navbar rule set. We've coded this as navbar, so now anything that we add to here will show up here. So the first property that I am going to add, I am going to do a background color. So I'm going to start typing in background, and I'm looking for background dash color. So here it is. Click on it, and once again, just like with your font color, you can choose one of these colors, or you can use a hex code. For this one, for the navbar, I'm going to do like a sky blue. I think that works nicely with my photo. So now notice that there's not too much going on. It's not really bigger. It's not necessarily tall enough. So we're going to do some more styling. So now we have our background coloring. We are going to actually use the padding property. So we're going to type in padding. P-A-D-D. Oh, so notice how this is not coming up, right? I know why. I did not close the declaration statement. So a colon opens it and a semicolon closes it. Now when I hit enter and I start typing in padding, now it pops up. I am going to do a padding of, let's try 20 pixels. And then close that. I think that's a little too big. I'm going to drop this down to maybe 15. Okay, so I don't like how the house is kind of hanging up. So I'm going to delete this padding line. And we're going to do padding another way. So you can add padding to just the bottom or just the top or the left and right. And you can add it at different pixel sizes. So I'm going to do padding top. And I'm going to add 20 pixels. Now that covers the house a little bit better. I'm going to make sure I close it. Then I'm going to do padding bottom. And it doesn't need as much on the bottom, so I'm going to try, let's try 10 pixels. I think that might be a little too much. I changed it to 5. And I think that's too little, so I don't know. I'm going to go with 8. Perfect. Now I'm going to add padding to the left-hand side. Padding dash left. And I'm going to put in 10 pixels. So now that moves it away from the house just a little bit. Close that, and then I'm going to do the right-hand side. So one of the things when you're designing stuff, especially with boxes, is that you don't want your text butting up right against the edges of your boxes because it looks unprofessional. I'm going to try 200 on the side. Because ideally what I want it to do is go all the way across. Let's try 400. Moving it to 800. That bumped it down to the next line, so that's too big. Let's see if that does anything. Nope. Going back to 6. We're still moving things too far around. I'm going to try 5. There we go. Okay, so now I feel like it's too close to the top of the house, so I'm going to give it a few more pixels on top. And try 25. That's much better. Now I'm going to put a border around this. Oh, I didn't close this. So to do a border, you need to start with border style. It's border dash style. And then I can choose, do I want a dash line, a dotted line, a double line, a groove, a hidden, and then inherit, inset, or none. Really, you don't have to worry about, because if you don't choose one, that's none. Inherit and inset is when the border is inset with, it looks like it's inside. However, solid is just a single line. That's what I'm going to choose. Solid. Okay, then I need to close that. And the next thing I'm going to do rounded corners. So that's going to be border dash radius. So type in border dash R, and it should be the first one. I am going to type in 2px, see what happens. Nothing really happened. I'm going to change that to 12px. Now I'm going to start bumping this down. 5. I like that. It's just sort of rounded, not super rounded. And then the final thing that I'm going to do is change that border color. So border dash color. It's the second one. And then I can choose. I'm going to try the deep sky blue, see what that does. Okay, and I need to close that. Okay, so for this one, for the nav bar, we have covered the background color, the padding, the border style, radius, and color. The next thing that we're going to go over is floating. So this is how you make a single column or a double column. So I'm going to go back to my index, and I am going to take the first 2 paragraphs, and I'm going to take the first paragraph and I'm going to make a sidebar. So before the first H3, I'm going to put my cursor right before the H3, and I'm going to create a tag called sidebar. I can't spell sidebar. S-I-D-E-B-A-R. And then I'm going to close that. This time I'm going to be smart, and I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to go to the end of the paragraph, and I'm going to paste it. And then I'm going to go to the right before the S and put my slash. And apparently I put 2. Okay, so now that I have the selector in the HTML, I'm going to go and create the rule set for the sidebar. So go to style.css. After your nav bar, you're going to paste in the sidebar, and you're going to get rid of the greater than and less than sign. Then you're going to do a space after sidebar and do your opening curly bracket, hit enter a couple times, and do your closing curly bracket. So the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to do our float property. So type in float, and we are going to go left for this. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do a width. Oh, I didn't close it. That's why it's not in the right spot. Okay, so make sure that you close the float tag and then hit enter to go to the next line. Then you're going to start typing in width, W-I, and then width is the second one. I am going to say this is going to be 200px. The next thing I'm going to add to this is a margin. One of the reasons you would add a margin is because you don't want your text to be right up against the side of your browser. So if we were to view this, say this is our screen, it would be like right up against the side of this browser. When you look at websites, they mostly don't look like that, and when they do, it just looks wrong. So the next thing we're going to put in is margin. M-A-R, it's the first one. I am going to put in 20 px and then close that. So see how it comes off? I actually think we need more than that. I'm going to put 50. The next tag that I'm going to add, I'm going to do a background color. So I'm going to start typing in background, and I'm looking for background color. There it is. And then I'm going to add something that's light, but so that it stands out a little bit. I'm going to try this floral white. Oh, that will work. I'm going to close that. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do, so the margin just moved it off the side. I'm going to add some padding because right now my text is flush with the edges, and that's just not good. So I'm going to add padding to the left, the right, and the bottom. I think the top is fine. Okay, so hit enter to put your cursor on the new line, and then start typing padding, and we want left. I am going to add 20 pixels of padding to the left side. And then I'm going to close it. Then I'm going to do padding right. And I'm going to add 20 pixels also to the right side. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some padding to the bottom. Probably 10 more pixels. So padding, bottom, and I'm going to put in 10 pixels. And close that. So I just noticed that when I did margin, it puts a margin all the way around it, and that's not what I was looking for. I just want the left side margin to be 50. So I'm going to go back up here to my margin and delete it and type in margin, and I want margin left. And I'm going to type in 50 pixels. Okay, that might actually be a lot now. I'm going to change that to 20. Much better. Now, I don't like that now this side is right up against it. So I'm going to add a margin to the right side also. Margin right. I'm going to try 20 pixels. I think it could use more. I'm going to try 40 pixels. Okay, not 400, 40. That's much better. Okay, the next thing I am going to do is I am going to style my headings. And I'm actually going to move this font family up to the bottom body section. So I'm going to copy it, then delete it. And then I'm going to come up here and put it in the body section. Then I want everything on my website to be sans serif. So it works better if you put it on the body section. Okay, so I like what's going on here. What I'm going to do is put the rest of this in another container, and I'm going to load it to the right. So what happened was we put this in a sidebar, and it became a container to hold this, and we floated it to the left. So now we're going to put everything else in another container, float it to the right of this, so that it looks like we have a left sidebar. So I need to go back to the index, and we put this around the first one. I'm going to come down to the second paragraph, and I'm going to call this area main. And I'm going to call it main content. Then I'm going to hit enter to put the H3 on its own line. I'm going to copy the main content, and I'm going to come down to this last paragraph, and I'm going to paste in that content tag. I'm going to go to the M, and I'm going to put a slash before it. Okay, so the reason why I have multiple paragraphs in this one is because I want there to be 2 columns. And if I only do a paragraph or 2, there will still be more text underneath. So you could style this extra text underneath as like a different content area, but I'm going to go with a sidebar and a main content area. So I put this main content closing sign after the key. I need to move it down to its own line. I think I did the same up on the sidebar. I need to move it down to its own line so it stands out. Okay, so now that we have the main content selector in the HTML, we have to go back to the style.css and add the role set. I've got a lot of space here. I'm just going to delete all this space. Same up here. Okay, I'm going to go down to my last one, and I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to paste what I copied, and I'm going to get rid of the greater than and less than signs. Then I'm going to go to the end, and I'm going to add my opening curly brace, hit enter a couple times, and add the closing. Okay, so one of the things that we need to remember is that this sidebar is 200 pixels wide. Plus it has a margin of the left and the right. So it's got 20 and 40. So this is 240 pixels wide. Okay, main content we're going to do width. This first one is the one we're looking for. I'm going to type in, let's try 600 pixels and then close that. And then we also, so I'm going to go above width and I'm going to do the float. And I'm going to do right and then close it. Now let's see what it looks like. Okay, so it didn't move everything. Like this should not be here. We need to put a left-hand margin in. So I said that this was 200 plus 20 and 20, so 240. We are going to put a left margin in of 240 pixels and then close it. So what's going on right now is that the 500 plus the 240 is too big to fit on the web page, so it's bumping it down. So I'm going to try 400 here and see if it brings it back up. I am going to try getting rid of this margin to see if that will bring it back up. Let me just click on refresh and save. Okay, I feel like it's still recognizing the huge margin. Let's make our width 600 again. Okay, so once again, see how it's just a little bit too big? I'll play this game again. 500. There we go. 500 is the magic number. Now our 2 headers are lined up, and then this does not come over on this side, which I wanted it to do that. If you wanted this color to extend all the way over, all you would have to do is change your margin on the right side. So in the sidebar, margin on the left side. That's on the left side. I'm going to hit delete. So see how it goes over? I'm going to give it another 20 padding on the right side. So I'm going to change that to 40. Then this is still too close to the edge, so I'm going to give it a little bit of padding on the left side. It is 20, we're going to go 40. We're going to subtract 20 from the 500 on the main content, because that's what I added to here. So 500 minus 20, 480. And there it's back up. And that looks good. I think I might add a little bit more padding to the bottom. I'm just going to do a 20 pixel instead of a 10. Okay. Okay, so now we have added we've gone over float, width, margins, background color, padding. What else do we have? We've gone over border color, radius, and style, and width. We did not go over border width. So going back up to the nav bar, let's tell it how big we want this border to be. So let's go border dash, and we're looking for width. So type in W, and then it should come up. Again, you can control the left, the top, the bottom, the right. I'm just going to do one border width. I'm going to say 10 pixels. And look how big that got. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to go through your website and I want you to add CSS styling.